Hillary Clinton is one step away, and a debate over district representation on Columbus City Council.
From the Battelle Studio at WOSU at COSI, this is Columbus on the Record. Joining Mike Thompson this week, Jim Siegel, State House reporter for the Columbus Dispatch, Chrissy Thompson, politics reporter for the Cincinnati Enquirer, Mike Ganadakis, Republican strategist.
Welcome to Columbus on the Record. Coming up, a debate on the proposal to break up council into wards. But first, Hillary Clinton capped her historic effort to become the first woman nominee for president from a major political party. Clinton accepted the nomination Thursday night, capping a spirited Democratic convention during which Democrats tried to unify, but some Bernie Sanders supporters fought back until the end. In her speech, Clinton tried to show a softer side, tried to marginalize her opponent, and tried to convince voters she was a unifying force for change.
So, enough with the bigotry and the bombast. Donald Trump's not offering real change. He's offering empty promises. And what are we offering? A bold agenda to improve the lives of people across our country, to keep you safe, to get you good jobs, to give your kids the opportunities they deserve.
Chrissy Thompson, did Democrats achieve what they wanted to in this convention?
I think ultimately they did, as far as allowing some of these Bernie Sanders supporters time to grieve, to move on. Most of them by the end of the convention were more or less on board with Hillary Clinton. There were some flare-ups in the speech where some folks would start to heckle or yell, and that's when you would hear that Hillary, Hillary chant. Yeah. As far as kind of bringing the rest of the country on board, Hillary Clinton tried to do a lot of things in her speech where she tried to reach out to progressives, she tried to reach out to disaffected Republicans who don't like Donald Trump, and I think it had probably mixed success. So these next few months are going to be really crucial to doing that.
Jim, what did you make of she's so well known, but they seem to be trying to reintroduce her. What'd you make of that?
I mean, those who already have formed a solid opinion about Hillary Clinton, I doubt we're going to change their opinion much based on what they saw. I mean, one of her problems has been that she seems too contrived, too scripted all the time. Everything is very carefully planned out. I mean, she hasn't held a press conference for more than 230 days at this point, which, I'm sorry, is ridiculous for anyone running for president. So there's... I don't know that she changed many minds on that. She may have softened her image up in the eyes of some independents and some who don't pay a lot of close attention to politics. I do think it probably, maybe went on a little too long. I think after her daughter did the introduction, then they did the video, then she started to explain it again. It was like, okay, we get it. You're human. You've got a soft side. But like Chris said, I think it could have had an effect. I think the entire convention probably did a lot for the party, in that the Republicans allowed them to grab the mantle of so many different things, of patriotism. Who would have thought that now the Democrats would be the ones standing out there waving the flags at their convention, instead of the Republicans?
Mike, you saw the Republicans. It was really the Republican convention was an angry convention. Lock her up, all that chanting. The Democratic convention, would agree or disagree, was largely a more positive tone.
Respectfully, Mike, I have a ton of respect for you. I was on the floor of the convention, Republican convention. It wasn't an angry convention at all. As a matter of fact, lock her up was something that you heard from thousands of Bernie supporters. We call them Bernie supporters. It's actually the liberal base of the party.
I don't think they were chanting lock her up.
Oh, absolutely they were. You can just see all the videos on Twitter and Facebook to see that. So there was many things said. There was a lot of things, and I think you tweeted out that why isn't the media showing all the protesters inside the arena for the Democrats the way they did for the Republicans? So at the end of the day, the less than 10% of American population that tuned in to watch both the Democrat and the Republican conventions, what they saw, at least on the Democrat side, was a hot mess, because you would have Cory Booker, Elizabeth Warren, and Bernie Sanders saying the system's corrupt, everything's broke, Wall Street's terrible, but Hillary Clinton is the number one recipient of Wall Street money. And then you had unelected First Lady who did the best. She gave the best speech of everyone unelected. Michelle Obama, I apologize. But even the president stood up and said everything's great, but then the night before Bernie Sanders said everything's everything's terrible. Elizabeth Warren said everything's terrible. So what is it? You know, are we going to continue the Obama policies with 50 million people on food stamps now? Or is she a change agent like her husband said, Bill Clinton? There's too many mixed messages going on.
Chrissy, what about the Hillary Clinton sell herself in this speech? She really did not have the best speech at the convention. That belonged to Michelle Obama, President Obama, Joe Biden, and President Clinton, of course. Did she do enough last night to sell some skeptical folks?
Yeah, you know, I thought that the overall convention did a better job of selling the party, of selling the message, and even of selling Hillary Clinton from people who have personal relationships with her than her speech did. It had some really strong moments. Those were mostly, in my opinion, in the first half of the speech, and I thought it did go on pretty long. There were moments of the speech, and she struggles with some of her oratory. And there are moments in the speech that she really seemed to connect with the cameras, which is largely the audience, right?
Yep.
The people in that room are going to vote for her. So she really seemed to connect in some parts. In other parts, it's still this, you know, even how robotic the statement of a lot of people don't quite get me, and I understand that, you know, so she needs to work on that.
Let's get to we've mentioned the Bernie supporters, and Bernie Sanders supporters were heard throughout the convention. They walked out of the convention and they interrupted speakers. Let's take a listen to one woman here who was a Bernie supporter.
We don't believe that Clinton is a true Democrat. We don't think she really believes in a true democracy. You count every vote in every state, and you make sure they all have every right to vote in every single way. She doesn't care about that. She has taken away our votes and our voice. We're making sure we're heard.
I suppose it wouldn't hurt to mention that Bernie Sanders isn't a Democrat either. He's an independent, Jim. But there's anger there.
There's anger.
Yeah. Is it she's not going to vote for Hillary Clinton. I'm with great confidence she's not going to vote for Hillary Clinton. But how many Bernie supporters are like her, do you think?
Well, Hillary Clinton better hope there aren't many like that, which folks who are just outraged and just spouting off. I'm not sure that there was a whole lot of basis behind what she was saying, but she was certainly angry about it. You know, Bernie Sanders lost. He had far fewer votes. He had far fewer delegates at the end of the day, and that's how the system works. I mean, you may not like the results, but you got to deal with it. Yeah. Now, there's been some polls showing that most Bernie Sanders supporters are coming over to Hillary Clinton's side. I think if you add in maybe like a Jill Stein, the Green Party candidate, I think some may peel off to her. Yeah. And I think it still remains to be seen if there's still some fracturing there.
We're going to get to Hillary's competitor. Donald Trump continues to make controversial statements that energize his core supporters, anger his opponents, and raise questions among the undecided. This week, he seemed to encourage Russia to hack into Hillary Clinton's email.
I will tell you this, Russia, if you're listening, I hope you're able to find the 30,000 emails that are missing. I think you will probably be rewarded mightily by our press. Let's see if that happens.
Mike Gonadakis, let's say one thing up front. Hillary Clinton started this. She admits she was wrong to put the email server in her basement. The FBI says she was wrong to put the email server in her basement. So we'll put that aside. Was Donald Trump wrong to encourage Russia to hack her emails?
Yes, of course he was. But at the end of the day, if those emails only consist about her yoga classes and her daughter's wedding, who cares, right? That's what she claims.
He is a candidate for president encouraging espionage on the part of a superpower. What does that say about his fitness to rule?
Hey, look, this is a new world. We live in a new country. Anything he says, it doesn't matter. He's winning on all the polls right now. The Crystal Ball report that just came out has him winning the election. Okay, so the crazy things that come out of his mouth actually help him. I'm telling you right now, Donald Trump is going to win this election.
But my theory is each thing he says ticks off a small percentage of undecideds, Chrissy. I mean, it's not one thing that's going to doom him, but it's a cumulative effect that could have an effect on the election.
I think you're right. I think that a lot of the news that has come out over the last week and a half is a drip, drip, drip of ticking off undecided voters against Hillary Clinton as well. And so we're going to see one of two things, in my opinion. We're going to see really low turnout. Everyone's just really fed up with both of these candidates. The majority of Americans don't like either of them. Or we're going to see crazy high turnout and people are really going to make a decision. And in that case, I don't think we have any idea who's going to win.
I think Clinton's effort was to try to say, look, I'm the steady hand at the wheel. I'm not the one who's going to go off. I think one of her best lines in her speech was when she said, a man you can bait with a tweet is not a man you can trust with nuclear weapons. I think that was a good line, and I think that's going to be, his temperament is going to be a big part of this debate.
Let's get to our off-the-record final parting shots. For this section of the program, Mike Gunadakis, you're up first.
I think you've seen the coming out party for Nina Turner. I think she's going to be a force to be reckoned with in Ohio. It's going to wreck Chairman David Pepper's plans for what he wants to do in 2018, but watch for Nina Turner to run for governor.
Chrissy.
Well, I just wanted to say also about Nina Turner that there are some members of the party who are really ticked off at the amount of attention she's gotten this week, and what she may just have hurt herself and ended her political career as well. So we'll see.
Interesting. And Jim.
I think this Trump-Russia connection is going to continue to fester as a story. There's a lot there in terms of his relationships with people who are very close to Vladimir Putin.
Okay. And Ted Strickland did not speak at the Democratic convention. Of course, Rob Portman did not speak at the Republican convention. I think it just symbolizes the fear they have of being linked to the candidates at the tops of their tickets. So, next up on Columbus on the Record, a debate over district representation on Columbus City Council.